You mentioned a moment ago about parents needing to be aware of influences, possible influences that may exist amongst their children. Are you referring to, like in the case, which I know is can be common amongst young children, when they, say that they see monsters like under their bed or something? Are you saying that that could in fact be like a spiritual influence?
Yeah, if it's a matter of having watched a movie or watching TV and the issue of monsters comes up and the child is spooked, and you can tell the child, well, it's not real, it's television, and then that might be enough to enlighten the child, right, and eliminate this fear. Say, oh, well, okay, dad or mom, all right, sister, brother, whoever tells them, and it puts it to rest. But if it's something which is obviously more than that, then you have to look into it, rather than suspect that there's something wrong with your child, or it's just, you want to look deeper into this. You want to find out if they need to have a psychic person, discuss things with them or not, right? Or have somebody come over and check your house. But things have to be pretty bad, either in terms of like the child really saying, oh no, they're monsters, there's something here. And so it has to be persisting karma, and then you have to do something about it, because you want your children to be at peace. You don't want to keep them disturbed, or worse, ignore that they're disturbed and then create other problems at the same time. You don't want to put your child at risk, and for them to later in life say, well, I was complaining about this all the time, but my family didn't pay any attention to it. So there's neglect of what the child is, let's say, perhaps wanting to receive attention for, say, and not getting it. Right.
Could the root cause of someone who appears to be in a severe state of depression and or mental illness really just be the result of playing host to a psychic vampire?
Yes, that could be a living person, that could be a spirit, say, ghost or something, right? A program, right? Some kind of ghost program, haunting. Yes. See. Yeah, there's more of that going on in life than people acknowledge. So you're just insensitive to it, because you look with your eyes, you see nothing, but you feel. You got to go with your feelings in it. If you can't see it, you can feel it. You might have to act on it. Sometimes you're just paranoid. You got to know when you're being paranoid and when you're really calm and clear and you're feeling something. And then you might be onto something that's valid relative to the psychic nature of what is going on around you at that moment.
Is a psychic...
Because we're all psychic. We're not just bodies, flesh bags, meat bags. We're psychic beings. We need to practice. We have a right to practice our psychic sensitivity, as well as, let's say, mental sensitivity. We have a sensitivity to thoughts, see? And we want to be able to feel how an environment feels relative to who's in that environment and what they may be thinking. That's not just paranoia, that might be valid. See? Come on.
Is a psychic vampire always easy to spot out, or can one mistake them as being a friend, guide, or healer?
Well, if psychic vampire is clever. See, psychic vampire wouldn't be a psychic vampire unless they were clever and deceptive, see, to satisfy their needs. See. So, could they trick you into thinking they were a guide or a healer? Yes, of course. They could use their conversation about that. But really want to feed off of your emotions and your fears, and you need to know them by what they want to feed off of. See, what they seem to be appealing to you for. See, or your sexual desires or something of that nature, which is not ultimately bad, but it has to do with psychic vampirism in a certain way. That's all they want, that's all they need. So if you're willing to do that, if you feel that's part of your path, then that's what you do. If on the other hand you feel that that's not part of your path and it's uncomfortable for you to be used that way, then you have to say something about it. Get off that track and find a better track for yourself.
Chapter 30, you write, these lower spirits can enter the astral plane of dreams of undeveloped, unprotected, and unaware spirit souls, causing nightmares and and disturbed and fearful, restless sleep. These spirits await the newborn and new dead in order that they may establish an attachment, pact, or debt with them. What, if anything, can be done to protect those that are most vulnerable and perhaps initially unable to protect themselves from psychic attacks?
Well, you need to know about this. So knowledge is important. Education is important. See? We need to know about these things. We need to know about the fact that when a baby's being born, there's often, but it's not visible, a conflict. See, like there are entities trying to get into it from one or the other side of the family to take control of that body. See, and that's something we were talking about earlier. See, so you have a birth, the mother has a child, she knows it's her child, but then when she realizes after the child grows up, that, is this really my child? See? And you wonder if not, it's possible, right? During the birth that another entity in the family took over. See, to feel this alienation from the child in some case or not. And we have to look at our children carefully enough to know, is that us? Is that me? Is that my spouse? Is this someone else? So these influences are going to come through. These influences will show up. See? And as I was saying earlier, and I'm going to put it again for the record, see, the mother who has what she assumes is a son who winds up her murderer may have to realize that that was not her son.
So you're talking about possession.
Possession. Mixing. It's not her son. And then when you have the son who may be in the court defending himself or herself or whatever it is, and they say, no, I didn't do it. Sometimes that's true, but nobody knows, see, because there's no evidence, because his body was used, see. And that's this tragedy there. The body was used and it's too late. You allowed yourself to be used and it's too late, or it just took over and it's too late. See? That's tragic. But that's the way it is. Someone has to pay for it. Fine. So we need to know more about these things in order to better educate ourselves and our children and our loved ones so that they can be aware of the fact that they have a center, spiritual center, and it's positive and it's good. And then that can be subject to influence to the negative. If you're not watching, if you don't know, right?
Regarding the newly born, are there certain signs to look out for as a parent that would indicate that their child may be in harm's way or under the influence?
No, this is psychic. You have to know for sure. But it's everyone has the ability, and we have to then trust the mother's instincts. See, the mother has to determine if that child is being influenced in a certain way. The mother has to know this. See? Sometimes the doctor is too late. The mother has to know. The mother must know the child. The mother is the child, so the mother must know the child, see? If she can. And while this may not be the reality of the people in the public who may be watching this, but this is really true for a lot of people, see, who have these problems, these issues, where they just don't know what to do with their children because they seem to be so troubled, see, so peculiarly troubled.
You also mentioned that the newly deceased can be vulnerable. What, if anything, can be done to protect one's loved ones who have recently passed on?
Protect one's loved ones who have passed on?
Yeah, what, if anything, can be done to protect or support one's loved ones?
Prayer does, see. Prayer does. And I think there are novenas and things that people can do in all the traditions and all the cultures where you have a connection with the deceased and you really want to support them as much as you can, and so you send the best wishes you can. And you continue to do that for a period of time afterwards, because it's not like an instant, you're dead, you die, and then it's over, and you don't exist anymore. No, your body's done. But your essence, your soul, as some would call it soul, your spirit, still needs to undergo certain processes, depending on your mind, your condition and your evolution. See? And so to be protecting your best interests as a family, yes, some naturally continue a blessing prayer form or wishes, best wishes. They keep that individual spirit and their being in focus, and they send very, very conscious grace waves to them for their journey, their passage through certain phases of, let's say, this process of dying, see, to completion. It's not a bad thing, rather than just leaving it at that. Boom, you know, it's dead, it's over now. Let's go out and drink and forget about that they ever existed. See? So we're saying that there is a sense of abandonment, in a sense, if you just die and nobody takes care of them. You have an afterlife, which is rather interesting for me to have to say. There is the afterlife. You know, and how do we tend to the afterlife? Because we're taking care of the life, but then there's the afterlife. What about the afterlife? Who knows about that? See? And what to do with that? So we're talking about continuing the, let's say, not so much mere attachment, but continuing the compassion, say, after death, because there's also the probability in the cases of people we know who are not practicing spiritual, let's say, advancement, where the being is confused, and you want to be able to understand that confusion as the, let's say, when the death comes, the confusion begins. It's not over. See, the astral condition is what's going to be impacted by the post-life experience, and we need to be aware of that as a consideration, even though we don't have the science right now, material science, to be able to determine that as fact. So we have to sort of feel that out as spiritually the case. See, and in other words, we need to feel, when we're talking about deceased relatives, that it's clear, that they have passed and it's clear, it's peaceful. There's no unfinished business. You can even, when the time comes and they pass, say, please indicate to us, spirit, by name, whoever it is, indicate to us, any one of us who's sensitive enough to hear your plea, what it is we need to do to finish this for you. What can we do to make your journey and your progression through the death easier, more peaceful? What can we do to help? Because we care about the afterlife. We care. And so we need education to be able to do that. We need compassion to be able to continue serving people after death, in a manner of speaking. See?
Do succubuses and incubuses really exist? And if so, how does someone leave themselves open to this particular kind of dark?
Well, it's just like also premature ejaculation for a lot of men. Well, what's going on with that when they go to sleep? Well, we're talking about an undisciplined life, and you may have to experience that when you're undisciplined. See, loss of energy seed and loss of vital fluids. So you're being preyed upon by programs, to say the least, if not in other entities, and the desires of other peeps. See, whether you're in the body or out of the body when you're asleep. See, I mean, there's a continuum. And there's life, and there's a circus of changes going on when you're in life, and when you're more or less in the dream state, which is just an extension of the life. It's just another form of the same thing, saying under different laws, and I guess you might say different perceptions to some degree, but yeah, it's a dream, and then you have subtle dreams, you have dreams within dreams, and all of this is part of it. It's a part of an infinite stream of consciousness that we are part of, and we are, in fact, not just part of it, we are it on all the levels, and we have to own up to it. We need to know that we have to center and be centered and realize our relationship to the light itself, that we are the light, not just, a light that's far away from us. No, we are the light. The fact that we exist is the light. You need to recognize that at the most fundamental level, at the subatomic or etheric or spiritual level, that you are nothing but the light. What's up? How have you scattered your energies into confusion and sickness and madness and confusion, when you've always been light, and you've only been light? Now, how can you be going through all these crazies if that's your true nature? Stop and pause on that. Say, stop, look, and listen. Are you really the unhappiness you suffer? Or is it, unreal. Are we making it real, or are we releasing it as unreal? Freeing ourselves, liberating ourselves in the moment. See, as soon as we recognize, oh, I'm suffering, maybe I can stop. Boom. Maybe for some it is that instantaneous. For others it may not be. See, it's much harder because they're ruled by or owned by the emotions. See, and it's the emotions that are intelligence. See, right? It's the emotion that is the intelligence using the person. An emotional person is a person used by the intelligence of emotion for emotional purposes. See, it has a life of its own. So we're a body, physical body, but we consist of many bodies. We're a person, but we consist of many persons, many voices in ourselves. We have a voice of many voices. See, the unconscious is the universe itself. So I mean, each one of us has, in terms of our consciousness, I mean, the whole universe, time and space, energy and matter is all in there. So we are really spooky creatures by nature. We are divine in terms of our potential. And we are by our choice, individuals in a manner of speaking, and limited. Thank heavens, because you can imagine, if we weren't limited, if we weren't more or less inhibited as much as we are and held back by, say, the forces of ego, we would be really dangerous to ourselves and everyone else. So we need training, we need education, we need spiritual understanding, we need awakenment, we need enlightenment. We need some kind of heart sense reality, and then maybe we can do good out here. Okay.
Is there more to vampirism than most people accept as true for themselves or recognize as part of themselves?
Most people are willing victims, but they don't even know it. They're being preyed upon as we speak, right? Being used by all kinds of things. In other words, they have a lot of desires. Does any person really have all those desires? Or are those desires really part of the influences of a psychic structure of, let's say, darker forces, right, that keep you materialized? We have to consider that. So are we by choice and design really just wanting to be materialized and wind up in these marketplaces and in these consumer, let's say, mills, just to buy stuff? Or are we really being influenced by something as a part of the material, let's say, machinery of lower consciousness, to be influenced by that to the degree where we are distracted from anything else of any real value to ourselves, really sucked into it completely, overwhelmed by it, say, owned by it. Say.
So are you saying then that that we can be used by such darkness and be totally unaware of it?
You're being used by consumerism. That's a form of darkness. Okay, that is a form of materialism. See, darkness, where they're taking more from you than you really have to give. And that machinery is like ruthless. It has no balance. See, it'll take everything you have and put you out on the street and let you die and not care for 1 second. See, if you're not careful, if you don't care enough to temper it for yourself, then you're going to be done in completely by it and not even missed. See.
Is it possible to just be completely and totally unaware of it? In other words, can you be put under some sort of spell?
Everyone is under the spell already. See, the technologic spell is one of the major spells right now. See, the whole thing is like feeling good because you have the latest technology. See, do we really need that? Yes, in this time and space, you do need that up to a point. But is that supposed to amount to happiness and success? No, you're made to believe that, and that's what the deception is. You're made to believe that. So people are left to feel inferior if they're not doing that because they have no integrity to begin with. They don't have anything else to believe in terms of themselves, except the gadgets they wear to make everybody else feel they're one of the crowd. See?
Is that technically a form of black magic?
I would say so. Black magic, again, what does that mean in this case? It means that it's preying over you and taking all you have without any concern for you whatsoever. You don't exist except as something it can feed off of. So, of course you have services, everybody's happy with their gadgets and all the rest of it, but nobody's better for it. So, no one's more intelligent for it, actually, right? But because we've learned to manipulate the gadgets, we're more intelligent. No, the brain is huge, so there's no question about being able to learn some of these procedures, these mechanical procedures, to the infinite, and still not have any more brain power, still not know anything about who you are and what you need to be. See? See? Spiritually speaking, or creatively speaking, in a sense. See?